Oh yeah, hey guys, it's Mark Shay here. You're watching Exploring Music. Today we're checking out the top 10 things you need before you learn how to play guitar. So check it out. Just a few years ago this wouldn't be right. Yeah guys, before we get stuck into it, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Give it a thumbs up if you like the video, and don't forget to share it around, comment, tell me what you think of this video. So yeah, for those of you who've already been following the channel, you know I've got a series called Learn How to Play Guitar in 10 minutes or less, and I've had a few questions sent to me privately, asking a few questions, and I realized, well, I really need to go back and start dealing with a few things before you actually get into the learn the guitar part. So that's where I came up with this video, and this is the top 10 things you need before you learn how to play guitar. So let's get stuck into it. The number one thing you need before you learn how to play guitar is obviously the guitar. Now, of course, a lot of people go, what sort of guitar do I need? Do I need an acoustic or do I need an electric? And the answer is it depends on what you want to learn. Now, of course, you have the guitar, acoustic guitar. If you're just starting out, you don't need anything too expensive. Something that's fairly inexpensive or middle of the road is all you need, but it comes down to what music you like. So if you like things that deal with a lot of acoustic guitar, then get yourself an acoustic guitar. Acoustic guitar's got a lot of benefits where it doesn't need an amplifier. You can pretty much take it anywhere just on its own and just pull it out and start playing, and yeah, you're done. But it depends on what you're into, because if you don't start out with what you're actually into, you're going to lose interest. So it's not a bad thing if you don't want to get an acoustic guitar to start with. It's all about getting the right guitar for you. Now, of course, if you're into something that's like heavy metal and things like that, there's nothing wrong with getting an electric. If you're into something that really requires an electric guitar, if all the stuff you listen to has electric guitars in it and distorted guitars and that, don't necessarily go for an acoustic. Like, alright, I'm not sponsored by them, but Squier, I'm not sponsored by Fender or anything, but Squiers is a great guitar that's really inexpensive, and a lot of the Squiers are actually, in my opinion, better than the brand name. I've had some amazing Squiers, and it's not much money to get started, so you just got to make sure that it's got a few things which I'll go over. But of course, with an electric, you're going to need an amplifier. It all ties in with number one. So if you're going to get an electric, then make sure you get an inexpensive amp. Of course, if you're just learning, you're not sure you're going to stick with it, don't go blowing a lot of money straight away. Start learning how to play it, and then start saving your money, because if you're really into it, then you go out and buy the more expensive stuff. But right now, all you need, if most of the stuff you're into is electric driven, like heavy metal, hard rock, punk, even the country twangy stuff, if you like all that stuff that you're going to learn, you're going to want an electric. You get your guitar, your amp, and the cord to plug into it. That's all you need to kick it off, just so you can hear the guitar. And there's nothing wrong with that. So just don't go blowing a whole lot of money until you're sure this is something you want to do, because it's about passion, and you want to be able to learn the things that you enjoy learning. And whether it's electric or acoustic, you can learn all the basics on both of them. Basics are the basics. So whether you learn them on an electric or an acoustic, it's totally up to you. The important part about this is you want to make sure it feels right in your hand. Now, some acoustics, they will be a lot wider fretboard. They will have a lot wider fretboard, and so the stretch can be a bit much, especially for kids, if you're looking at getting a guitar for your kids or something like that. So you can even get 3/4 guitars or even mini guitars if you got young kids, but you want to make sure that it feels comfortable, and basically probably just make sure that you can put all 4 fingers on each fret like that, like what I'm doing there. You know, just one finger on each fret. If that's pretty comfortable, that's a good spacing. And also, you want to make sure the strings aren't too high, but that can be adjusted. But if it, you know, you can get them pretty good straight off the rack, but you want to make sure the strings aren't too high off the fretboard, because a lot of the cheaper guitars, let's put that down, a lot of the cheaper guitars have the strings way up, you know, whether the bow's just not set right, the neck's bowed a bit and it's not just set right, and if you don't know how to adjust it, which is, most guitar shops will adjust it for you before you take it home, but if it's too much to push down, then that can get frustrating as well. You want to make sure your neck's straight, so you know, you look down the neck, make sure it's all looking straight and looking even. But like if you're buying a brand new guitar, most of these things are pretty set, so you're pretty good. And like I said, if you get a good brand like Squier, basically everybody was ripping off, all the cheap companies were ripping off Fender, and basically Fender thought, oh, we'll make our own cheap version, and that's where I assume Squier came from, because everybody else was ripping off the Stratocasters and Telecasters, and they just made their own version of it, because it is a Fender guitar. So, but you want to make sure it's comfortable. And so no matter what brand it is, so it don't matter the brand, if it's in your budget, just make sure that it's comfortable. The action in it, it's called the action, like the height of the thing, it doesn't have to be super low. You know, some people like that, some people like a little bit of space, but you don't want too much room to push down, because then you get really pushing down with the left hand. And yeah, so it don't matter whether it's electric or acoustic. Of course, if you're into the stuff that's going to require an electric, then, and you only got money for one guitar, then go for the electric. So that way, as you're learning riffs, of course you're learning your basics, but then when you learn riffs that you want to learn, you've already got the tools to start playing, you know, things like Smoke on the Water, whatever you're into, and that's all good. And of course, same thing goes with your acoustic, right? You want to make sure that it's pretty good condition. You don't want the action too high. You know, of course, you're probably not going to play down here a lot, especially at first, but that don't matter. Sometimes you will come down here, so you still want to make sure the action's pretty good. With a lot of acoustics, the cheaper acoustics, you really can't adjust them too much, so make sure you get that right before you buy it. You know, because of course if it's steel string, you want it, if you're going to buy an acoustic, you can get a reasonable acoustic that is an acoustic electric, so you can plug it into an amp for later on when you get a bit better. So don't just buy a straight out acoustic, you know, where it's just acoustic. If all you're going to do is play in your room, that's fine. But if you're looking at maybe getting good enough to do this as a career or something like that, you're going to want to take it to a stage, and trying to mic up just a standard acoustic, or having to buy a special microphone that hooks into it and all that, yeah, just so they're pretty inexpensive now to buy them, that are already capable to plug into an amplifier if you need to. So that's another thing you need to look at. So make sure it's, you know, acoustic electric, because then you can play it on your own. Make sure everything's pretty much right. Of course, if it's acoustic electric, it'll have steel strings, and it should have somewhere to adjust the neck if you need to. But yes, some of the cheap ones don't, and you can't really do too much with them. So that's where I'm saying look at the middle of the road, or a decent brand that sells inexpensive guitars. But yeah, so that's the important thing, is picking the right guitar for you. So that whole debate of, oh, you're just learning, you should be on an acoustic guitar, is not necessarily the case. Nothing wrong with an acoustic guitar. I learned on acoustic at first, but then when I wanted to play, you know, it's a bit hard to play the heavy thing. Yeah, if you're really into the heavy music, trying to learn it on an acoustic just doesn't work. So yeah, make sure it's something that you're going to be really invested in, because if you're still learning but you can't learn the songs that you really want to learn that are on acoustic, then the acoustic's going to stifle you out. Work out what you want to play the most, and then work out which guitar is better for you. Either way, you can't go wrong as long as it fits you and it feels right. That's the most important, is that the guitar matches you and you're happy with it. So that's number one. Okay, so number two, the second most important thing. This one's going to be controversial, you know, I'm sure for a few people. But the second most important thing you're going to need is a pick. Right, now don't get me wrong, you want to learn how to play with your fingers as well, you know. A lot of great artists use just their hands, you know, like Mark Knopfler. Keith Urban uses a pick, but he does do a lot of stuff with just his fingers, you know, and it's good to learn both ways. But you're also going to want to pick. Now, a lot of people go, what sort of pick do I get? Well, this is totally personally up to taste. The rule of thumb is the softer and bendier the pick, the more it's for like rhythm stuff. The harder the pick is for the soloing stuff. It's a really super thick hard pick, that's usually for like a bass. You know, and a bass you're more off to learn with your fingers and walking, you know, but you can use a pick on bass as well. Either way, whether it's a bass or a guitar, you should learn both ways with fingers and a pick. Now it just comes down to what do you use. I use around the 0.73 mark. I find that stiff enough for rhythm and stiff enough for soloing, yet flexible enough to really rock out with rhythm stuff. So that's where I'm at. 88s tend to be a little bit stiffer, and so they're not as good for really cranking, really racking it into the strings. If I was just playing a rhythm track that's just going for gold, I'd probably go really thin and floppy. It gives you a bit of a percussive sound. So the picks make a whole difference. So when you're first buying, they're really cheap. You know, most picks are like 50 cents. So go buy a whole range of them. You know, spend $10 on picks, but have each one different, and play around with each one and see which one you like. Now, I tend to use these nylon ones because they seem to have a better grip. They last a lot longer, in my opinion. But I do use a couple that are solid, the solid plasticky stuff. So buy a range of picks, just at 50 cents each. Don't go crazy, but buy a few different types and a few different thicknesses and work out what pick suits you, because that is going to totally come to taste. And like I said, you know, you want to try and find that balance if you can, that you don't have to be changing picks either. And of course you have people go, oh, what about the thumb pick, the one that just sits on your thumb and then you can just go like that? Well, those picks are really more like, you know, where you're using your fingers, and you can even get little fingertip picks as well if you wanted to. There's a reason why I'm not a fan of the thumb picks that actually sit over your thumb, and that's because when you're playing rhythm, it's how you hold it. You can't adjust those thumb picks. Where if you're playing rhythm, you want a bit of stuff out like that. And I'm going to talk about this in another video in more detail. But when you're soloing, you want to make it really tiny, and you can't do that with those thumb picks. That's where I'm not really a fan of those, unless you're doing things like banjo and things, and those sort of instruments where you'll be using your fingers a lot, you know, and you want your thumb to have a bit of a sharper attack. That's what those are for. But yeah, make sure you get a good pick that's really to your taste and how you like to do it, and learn with a pick, and also learn with your fingers, because there's a few different ways to play guitar with your fingers or your right hand. So it just comes down to what suits you the best. And if you're into things like metal and that, most often you're going to be using the pick, and maybe, you know, you're still going to use these fingers with a pick if you're doing it right. So make sure you get a pick and find a pick that suits you, and also don't, you know, dismiss the whole use of just playing with your fingers only. You want to be pretty proficient in both. But so the second thing you're going to need is a pick. That's number 2. Number 3. Well, that's 6, but number 3. Okay, now this one is important. It's time. If you're going to learn how to play guitar, you're going to need time to practice. Right? That's the bottom line. You're going to fit it in. Now, if you've got 5 minutes per week, you're never going to learn the guitar. It just ain't going to happen. You want to have some time set aside for practicing your guitar. And as you get better, your practice might just turn into playing songs. You know, just playing stuff you already know and things like that. But especially for the beginning part and getting your muscles in order, you need time. So make sure that you have, you know, whether it's 10 minutes a day at minimum, you know, or 2 hours a day, it's totally up to you, but you need some sort of time set aside where you can practice your guitar. Because that's what you're going to need. Because besides building the muscles up in your hands, because not just your hands, but your muscles in here, they all got, your whole forearm of your left hand has to get built up in strength. Same thing with your right hand. Now, you got to build that muscle, and not only that, you got to build the muscle memory. So, you know, that's where you play a chord so many times. I think this is a bit out of tune, but you play a chord so many times that without even thinking, the muscles in your hand know exactly where to go to boom. Now you got to build that muscle memory as well as the muscle strength in your hands to do those moves. And if you're only playing 5 minutes a week, and then if you're going to guitar lessons, that's the only time you're actually really playing guitar, and at home you're not doing much, then you're just not going to get it. You're physically not going to be able to play the guitar. You got to have a bit of time, a little bit of time. Like I said, it doesn't have to be much, even 10 minutes per day. You know, just pick up the guitar and do your scales or something. You know, just for 10 minutes a day at the very least. You got to have that, or maybe an hour every second day. So you don't have to think of it as a daily routine, but it has to be a regular routine. Like I said, 5 minutes a week ain't going to cut it. You're never going to really pick it up. You're going to get frustrated and you're going to quit. So before you start guitar, make sure you allocate some time to get the practice in. And that one's number 3. Tip number 4. Yep. Now, what's the best way to put this? Patience. That's tip number 4. You gotta have patience. Don't expect. There's little tricks that you can do, and if you watch my videos on learning guitar in 10 minutes or less, I try and add some fun things in that you can learn really quickly that keep you interested. Right? You want to always try find things that'll keep you interested in learning guitar. Because if all you get is basic chords to practice and a couple scales, you're going to get bored really quickly because you're just not playing anything that you really relate to or want to play. Where, you know, I try and throw in a few riffs here and, you know, try and make it a little bit fun, or, you know, like I show you 3 chords that once you get down you can play them in a way where you can play a bunch of songs, and then I give you the 4th chord and all of a sudden you got all these songs that you can start learning how to play. But the bottom line is you still need patience to learn. You know, like when I talk about the simple scale, really early on in the videos of Learn Guitar in 10 minutes or less, I teach you this really simple basic scale just to strengthen your fingers. You know, we're going to get into a couple more major sort of scales that you need, right? But even with the most basic things, it has to strengthen your fingers. You got to get everything working, right? And that's why I give it to you. But you need the patience, because a lot of people, they'll go on and they'll see someone go really quick and they'll want to do it that fast. But what they got to remember is everybody that learns to play didn't just pick up a guitar and go unless they were playing something else beforehand, like a bass or something else that they got their finger strength up in that. You know, you need the patience, because if you have to play it this slow to get the hang of it, then that's how slow you got to play. The speed will come as the muscle strength and the muscle memories get stronger and stronger. So if you have to go really slow just to get something done, then you're going to need the patience to sit through it. I know it's frustrating and it can get to you at times, but that's where like I said, I try and give you some really simple riffs that you can play something that's not too hard, but you can recognize it and you're like, oh yeah, I'm playing, yeah. But at first, you'll be playing it like, just to get the hang of it. And that's where you need the patience just to get things happening. So tip number 4 is, even if you don't have much, you need a little bit. Patience is really, really important. So make sure you keep that in mind, and it's like, okay, well, it's gonna take a little bit of patience, so I gotta not get too frustrated and angry and smash the guitar because I'm just so frustrated, because once you smash your guitar, well, you're gonna have to go buy another one if you want to keep doing it, or you've just quit. So yeah, so tip number 4, patience. Yeah guys, don't forget, I can't do this channel without support of some great people, including Conceptual Creative. They help me make these videos and make them possible. If you want to see what they do for me, go to markshaymusic.com.au and see the awesome website they put on for me. If you need website services, web hosting, website design, creating the website, maintaining the website, they got you covered. So go give them some love. Links are in the description, and tell them I sent you. Up to tip number 5. Now really this list was the top 4. I thought, well, I'll make it a top 10 and include some things that you're going to want to have on hand before you start playing guitar. Now just to cover, I don't want to do brand names, but first one is spare strings. Even if it's one packet, right? When you buy a guitar, buy spare strings. If it's 1 or 2 packets, because like the problem is when your strings wear out, you want to change the whole lot. So you get a packet of strings and you just change the whole lot and you're good to go. But the problem is odds are you will break one string. So you want a spare packet on hand just to change that string and keep going. You don't want to have to put the guitar down and oh well, I'm not going to practice until I get to the guitar shop. Who knows when that'll be? Maybe it's next week sometime when I got a chance. So you want spare strings, so that way if something happens, change the string and keep going. And that's where it's good to have 3 or 4 packets. You ask all the major guitar players, they've got 3 or 4 packets of spare strings just sitting there. 2 of those packets will be bits and pieces. It's like it'll be missing a G string and an A string, and the other packet will be missing an E string, or you'll have bits and pieces because eventually you will use them. So you want to keep them there. But yeah, try and get a few packets, but if not, just get 1 packet of strings to have on you for that rare chance that you snap a string. It isn't going to stop your learning process. So that's tip number 5. Okay, tip number 6. Now, hey, we're in double hands. Okay, so what you're going to need is a notepad and a pen. That is the tip of things you're going to need. That's the number 6 thing you need on the list, is a notepad and a pen. Now you're probably thinking, why do I need a notepad and a pen? I've got my phone. I'll just type it out like that, or I'll just record it. Right? Now the reason for a notepad and pen is because if you come up with something or you need to remember something, that's what it's for, is just to remember stuff, to jot down notes. Okay, so you might come up with a cool lick and you just want to scribble it down. Now unfortunately you can't do tablature or music notes at the drop of a hat in Notepad, right, on a phone. But you can draw a couple lines and just mark out either notes, depending on how you're learning, whether you're learning music notes or tablature. You can just scribble it down, or you could even just write first fret, or maybe, oh, I need that, oh, what was that song? You're working out a song, and so you don't forget it, you write down the chords of the song. You just want something that you can just grab and go, boom, it's done, and I can remember it. I know it's a pain in the butt. I've got heaps of books of just scribbles all through them. Now you can type things out in Notepad to remind you, or you can record it. The problem is with the voice recorder, if you're just recording the audio, that doesn't tell you what you're playing. You know, unless you want to videotape yourself, but then you got to look through it. Hey, if you got the time and the ability to just record yourself playing everything, and you can show yourself and talk to yourself to remind you. But a notepad and pen, just so easy. You know, just have it on hand. You know, when you're playing and it's like, okay, I'm learning that song, but oh, I'm missing that chord. That chord's right. Got to work it out, and just scribble it down, so that when you put things down, you come back later, it's there to remind you. Because trust me, the biggest thing, especially when you're writing songs, writing lyrics, writing notes, whatever, is, oh, that's all right, I'll remember it, is the biggest lie you will tell yourself. Then if you're just recording the audio, there's times where you're playing, and then all of a sudden you're trying to work out what it is when you come back to it, and if it doesn't pick it up really clear, you might just never get that vibe back that you had. So yeah, have your voice recorder and all that on hand, but a notepad and pen can't go wrong. And that's tip number 6. Okay, tip number 7. A strap. See, you can see what I was saying. The first 4 are pretty important, but these other ones, they're important. They're just not as important as the top 4. But of course, tip number 7 is a strap. Why are you going to need a strap before you learn how to play guitar? Well, the reason is because you want to learn your guitar. Now, unless you're planning to sit down at every performance, you're going to have to practice standing up with a strap. Sitting down and standing up while playing guitar are 2 totally different things. Now, if you want to do the rock star thing and have your guitar really low, right, all the way down here and rock it out, then you're definitely going to need a strap, and you're going to have to practice and learn things with that strap as long as it can be. Because I can tell you now, if you sit like this, learning your guitar, right, with the guitar here, and you're playing and you're rocking it out, I guarantee you, if you've done that for the last 6 months, when it comes time to stand up and play guitar, you're going to be standing up with your guitar up here, because this is how you've played it. Because the minute you drop it down here, the position of your wrist and your fingers and everything totally changes. So you actually have to practice with your guitar way down, you know, or however you want it, wherever you think it looks cool when you're standing up. But if you think it looks cool up here, don't worry about a strap, because when it comes time to stand up, this is how you're going to be playing it anyway. Like I said, so you can see how, if I'm sitting here and this is how I'm learning songs, this is the way it's going to stay. So, okay, there's nothing wrong with learning songs like this and yeah, rocking it out. But then, once you learnt it, you put it on the strap, you stand up and you play the same thing, and you got to get used to it all over again. You know the notes, you know everything, that's cool. But to do it, and you got to practice standing up, because it's a totally different feel, and you know, even the position of your right arm, your picking hand, totally changes. So that's why you need a strap, and that is tip number 7. Tip number 8 of things you're going to need before you learn how to play guitar is a guitar case. Yes, a guitar case. Now, it doesn't matter, it can be a gig case. You know, you'll see a lot of people and they'll have a gig case, and what they are, they're the really soft ones, usually with a strap that you can throw on your back and just, you know, they're called gig cases or whatever you want to call them. Of course, most people are familiar with the hard guitar case, which is really a hard shell to protect your guitar. So it's basically whatever you can afford, just as long as you got something to put your guitar in when you're transporting. If you're going somewhere, you do not want to just take your guitar and throw it in the car like that. No. Right? Whether it's a soft case or a hard case, you want something to protect this when you're traveling. You know, even if you're going camping or whatever. You just need something. Now, okay, the pros and cons. Now, basically a hard case is heavy and bulky and it takes up heaps of room, you know, so that's where a lot of people like the gig cases. They're soft and all that. Problem is with most gig cases, you're going to have real tuning problems because it's the headstocks are going to always get knocked around because it's so soft. With a hard case, once the strings are set and all that, when you put it in a hard case, as long as there's not too much difference in air pressure of where you're traveling to and from, the guitar will stay pretty much in tune. You'll be able to pull it out and just start playing. If there's the air pressure differential changes, you will have to top up and tune, or it'll be perfectly tuned but just a bit high or a bit low depending. But yeah, so a hard case will pretty much protect it really well, unless you're on an airplane where they just trash your guitars. But yeah, a hard case is the way to go if you can afford it and if you've got the space for it. The gig case is good just for something to have around your case, especially if you're just going to guitar lessons or you're going out camping and you just want to walk. But just beware that with the soft case, when you stick your guitar in or zip it up, there's no protection around the headstock, and that's, you know, you got the cushioning, but the headstock and the machine heads and all that do get knocked around a bit, and you know, you're always going to be tuning up every time you pull out of the gig case anyway. So they're the pros and cons. But yeah, before you start learning, if you can, you don't need to, but don't plan on going anywhere, because yeah, just don't take your guitar anywhere without a case. So if you can't afford a case and you don't want a case or whatever, then just keep your guitar in your room. Yeah, so that is number 8. We're almost there. So tip number 9 is one of these little things. They're called a capo. Now, why would you want this before you learn guitar? Well, it's good to have just on hand, right? I know it sounds like I'm flushing it out. You know, it's like, oh, well, you couldn't come up with 10, so now you're just trying to throw something in. But there is a reason for the capo, especially if you sing along to what you're playing. Now, if you're just shredding on guitar, you don't need these, right? So don't worry about this if you're just going to play instrumental stuff and all that. But if you're going to play and sing, or you're going to back someone who sings, you're going to need one of these. It'll just make life a little easier, especially as you're beginning. Because, just as an example, put my pick all the way over there. Just an example, you learn a song G, C, D. And the person singing goes, oh, that's too low, I can't sing that low. Well, without having to relearn and transpose the chords, you can just pop it up. Basically a capo replaces the nut. So where the nut's there, you just move everything up 3. So if you were playing on the 3rd fret, you now play 3 up from the capo, and say, oh, it's still not low enough. It's still too low. Still too low. I gotta sing it a bit higher. So then you move it up and you say. And as you can see, you can play the exact same thing just in a different position up on the guitar, and that's what the capo is really handy for. You know, that's pretty much what it's for. Is just so you can play the exact same thing in a different position, but it changes the key. So that is why a capo, especially if you're going to be singing along to what you're playing, you definitely want one of these before you start playing. Because then as you're learning a song, you know, you're frustrated because you just can't sing it, it's in the wrong key. Well, this will help to get a key that you can sing to as you're learning the song. So that's tip number 9. Okay, our very last tip. Tip number 10. And this is something that a lot of people don't think about when they first buy a guitar. A guitar stand. Now I got a few different types, but if you're going to have one guitar, make sure you buy a guitar stand. There's a whole different range of them. This one, for example, the guitar sits like that. You know, just leans. It's really small. Others will have something that goes around the neck to give it a bit more support. But yeah, you're buying your guitar. Even if you buy a case, what are you going to do? Put it in the case every single time you want to play it? If it's, you know, if you're going to play regularly, you know, it doesn't have to go away in a case in your room. The case is for travel. This is to keep it so you're not just throwing it on your bed or tucking it under your bed with unprotected, or having to put it into your case all the time. So a guitar stand will make your life really simple. Puts it there. It also has it out, so when you're not, you know, you're reminded, hey, there's my guitar, I better practice. You know, if you're sitting there bored in your room, have a look over, yeah, oh, there's my guitar. Yeah, I'll just pick it up and just play for a little bit and get some practice in. Guitar stand is an important piece for, yeah, it's an important piece to have when you get a guitar. You know, hey, but if you don't want to, or if you don't have the money for it, nothing wrong with that. Just put it in your case if you got one. But you either have to have a case or you have to have a stand. You do not want a guitar just leant up against the wall or on a chair, or just, you know, just somewhere where it can be knocked over and that. Like I said, this one here is a pretty simple basic stand, but you get them with the part that clips onto the neck, and it gives it a more sturdy, safer place to put it, and you can tuck it away in the corner, visible, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, tip number 10 of things you need before you learn guitar is a guitar stand. And that is the list. That was number 10. Yeah guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed that top 10 list. And if you think I've missed anything out, put it in the comments. If you think I've got something wrong, you tell me about it. And tell me why. Don't tell me, hey man, that was wrong and all that, without saying it. If you think I've said something wrong, you tell me why, and we'll have a chat about it. No problem. And don't forget, this episode is brought to you by the awesome Conceptual Creative. Go to markshaymusic.com.au to see what they have done for me. Go to their website. Links in the description. If you need web hosting or website design, website built, they show them some love. Go over and see what they can do by you. They help make this channel happen. So yeah, give them some love from me. Until next time guys, I hope you've enjoyed this list. This is my first top 10 list. I'll think about doing a couple others. I do have one more in mind. But yeah, until then, I'm Mark Shay. This is Exploring Music. See ya! This episode of Exploring Music is brought to you by Lag Guitars and Conceptual Creative. Check them out today. Hit the like button and comment and tell me what you think of this video. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos.